Things are really bad in the world of Magic the Gathering right now, and unfortunately, they're only going to get worse. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about the current state of Magic the Gathering, how we got where we are, and ultimately how it's going to have to get worse, but hopefully that by getting worse, it leads to getting better. That is essentially the only path that I see through what's going on without the game's absolute collapse. Ultimately, I believe what we all want is an enjoyable game where we're not getting all stressed out about a bunch of nonsense and poor choices aren't being made by the company that's creating this game. So I don't think there are too many people who would disagree that right now Magic is not in a good place, right? There's a lot to be dissatisfied about, and additionally, let's be realistic. The entire situation is compounded by the fact that there is an aspect of cabin fever going on with people because we have limited abilities to do a number of things that made life feel normal. And one of those, and most importantly in our cases for this conversation, is being able to go out and play Magic the Gathering. Not being able to go and physically play Magic has made people a little more antsy and reactive. So that does add a level, in some cases, of a little bit hyperbolic reaction to what's going on, but it doesn't change the fact that there are a good number of underlying problems with Magic the Gathering. And a number of these problems are a more recent change to the game, where for the longest time, Magic kept a roughly steady pace of not throwing out all kinds of insane new products and feeling like they're trying to extract every single dollar from us in every conceivable way, even if some of those ways are underhanded. Magic used to operate under the philosophy that we have the world's #1 trading card game. We are the best. We strive to make the best card game, to be the pinnacle, the king of the mountain, and deliver a good product just time and again. Here we go. We're monitoring the standard environment. We want these formats to be playable. We're trying to create cards that are interesting, but we're also trying to manage power creep. So back in the day, when the Mirrodin block went rampant because it was way too overpowered, in response, they made the Kamigawa block, which was underpowered, and developed a new system where going forwards, they would have these power balancing things where you end up with a set that's hopefully interesting enough without being too overpowered, and it doesn't lead to this crazy amount of power creep and a constant need for bans as well. So there have been periods in Magic's history where, yeah, okay, you know what, they're a little bit out of control, but it seemed like they would learn from it because underneath, the guiding principle was, let's create a fun, enjoyable, and stable game, right? And that seems to have been thrown aside. I can't pinpoint exactly when it happened, but it's happened within the last 5 years, and I strongly suspect it has to do with a change in the management at Wizards of the Coast. So basically a top-down change, where you shift who's in charge, they shift the priorities of the company, and that kind of feeds down through the company itself. Looking at some of the language that's used by people like Mark Rosewater when they're discussing changes and what's going on with the company, you can see now that there's definitely a level where if they want to do something, they have to consult with the layers of upper management who have strict rules about what they can and can't do based on, I have no idea what kind of arcane calculations they use, right? I'm sure they have economists and accountants and everything who figure this out. But either way, that's why, if you've ever wondered why we keep going back to Ravnica, Innistrad, Zendikar, when Magic is like infinite planes and there's planes we haven't ever been to a second time, that's one of those restrictions that management has put in place. And that's something that's been part of Magic since before the change. And while I'm not a huge fan of going back to the same place over and over, it wasn't nearly the problem that we're dealing with today, right? The current philosophy of management at Wizards of the Coast, in my opinion, is to be solely focused on the money and not money like a year from now, 2 years from now, the money today, the money right now. Quarterly Magic is what we're dealing with. Instead of looking at Magic as something they have stewardship over and need to leave to future generations sort of thing, it's more like plunder the coffers right now, take everything we can. We've seen a really significant increase in the amount of like higher end, more expensive products, right? The more expensive master sets. And then the Modern Horizons, right? Where they just made they made a set, we're just going to shove this into Modern, right? And we're going to charge double for it, even though we're using a bunch of art we have kicking around. Like Modern Horizons was a great example of where they really just took advantage of Magic players. You can tell when you look at the cards that a lot of the artwork is stuff they just had kicking around and repurposed. And it's totally fine to do that. But a lot of the times it didn't really gel with the card and fit properly. It was just slapped together stuff that they knew that they could throw into Modern. So it was an incredibly cheap set to design, right? And yet for some reason they charged double for it just to see if they could get away with it. And you see these crazy things like the VIP packs and the collector's boosters, all these like high-end expensive products designed to extract money from people. The Walking Dead obviously is the newest example that's got everybody riled up and has led to this conversation. I mean, they're trying to go for everything here. First of all, they've been trying to make things scarcer on the secondary market, pay attention to the secondary market more, and manipulate it more. Now, as a company, they legally disavow the market, but everybody knows they pay attention to the secondary market. That's why you'll see some cards go from rare to mythic rare, something like that, when all of a sudden it went from being like a 50-cent rare to, oh wait, Commander players love it, it's a $20 card now, make it mythic rare. Oh, it's mythic because we don't want to show up too much in drafts. And you're like, come on guys. Like, they feed us these lines that are clearly not true to cover for the fact that these are corporate numeric decisions designed to extract as much money. So like as much money as they can from us. So they want to manufacture scarcity, right? Somebody like one of the most telling examples of this, and probably part of maybe even frustration being expressed by Mark Rosewater, is talking about Imperial Recruiter. Somebody asked him basically directly, either through Tumblr or Twitter or whatever, it's like, why is Imperial Recruiter mythic rare? And Rosewater just responded with the one word. It just said scarcity. Just scarcity. Intentional scarcity to make the cards more expensive, right? So they've already been trying to do that with the secondary market. Then they decided they wanted to sell directly to us, because the normal vector is sell us randomized boosters, secondary market determines the price of it, buy through the secondary market if you want. Now Wizards wants to basically go, hey, we want to sell you from the secondary market, right? And so they start doing that. They start selling us Bitter Blossoms and other cards, things like that, and people are buying it, right? So now they're able to sell directly into them. Like, here you go, first person, buy the singles. We are now singles sellers, but we have the advantage of letting the market set these singles prices, and then we can just go, we're doing a secret layer with one card and 4 tokens, and it's $30 or $40 because the secondary market says this card is worth it, right? But there's a limit there too. Look at it from the perspective of somebody who's super greedy. That's how you should always view everything when it comes to dealing with this company now. Just put yourself in the mindset of the greediest thing you can think of, and then double that. And so if you're super greedy and you go, whoa, wait, not only can we create our own artificial scarcity, thus pushing up the secondary market price of something, and then sell it directly to consumers at those prices, not only can we do that, we can create new properties. Why do we need to just use what's pre-existing, right? That's going to run out. There's only so many cards we can reprint before the market values on them tank. What if we just create new cards and force them into the market this way, where it's buying singles from us directly and we make them tournament legal? We're not doing this silver boarded nonsense, because then people are rule zeroing it. They're rule zeroing it in Commander, and we want to avoid that. That's why The Walking Dead was made black bordered, right? So we have this thing where they're trying to create this more insane level of scarcity by going, you can only buy these singles directly from us for a week, right? They're essentially creating additional reserve lists. We can get into that. I'll do a video talking about the secondary reserve list that has just sprung up now. This is it. This is official. The Godzilla ones, you could say, okay, you know what? The double names and whatever else make it so it's not really reserve list, but this Walking Dead stuff, you won't see it on the surface that it's a reserve list, but if you understand like licensing and other things like that, you know that it is essentially an unspoken reserve list. And that may be intentional, that may just be a side effect. If rumors that are swirling around are to be believed, Wizards of the Coast actually went into a frenzy trying to do like 1 billion different crossovers. So we're going to see more of this, and it's going to be targeted at extracting as much money as possible, right? They have gutted organized play. They got rid of organized play. Like Arena's a massively greedy setup where you can see they keep trying to calculate how much they can take away from us. Originally giving us these like chill kind of free events you can play in, and now they're like, nah, you gotta pay for all these events. You gotta do all this. Now it's just, oh, are you buying the Mastery Pass? We're giving you less. Next time we gotta give you less, guys. Look, like think about this logically. The Ikoria season is shorter than any other season. So we have to give you less for the same amount because we want to keep the same amount of average rewards per day. Now, when we have the Arena Mastery season that's 110 days, 80 days, 110 days. Excuse for this having less? It needs to be an average amount across these days, and this is a shorter season. Longer season, extra rewards? Nope. Same as everything else. Nope, no. Oh, we're trying to keep an average amount of rewards across the day. It's nonsense. Everything is done from the point of absolute greed. Look at the stewardship over formats. Look at Standard. Standard is a tire fire. There are bans all the time with such alarming frequency that it's just become a part of our existence. It doesn't feel odd anymore. There was an emergency banning right when Zendikar was released to get rid of a card that should have been gotten rid of months and months ago. Uro's been a problem forever. They even admitted it in the article where they were talking about the banning. He's been a problem forever. But the real problem is them not getting money from selling Uro. So you've got to deal with Standard being awful, right? They've got their new, the acronym's amazing. The new design philosophy is called FIRE, right? And that's exactly what it is. It's set fire to the game. It's absolute absurdity. They used to care very much about balancing Standard. Now they don't care about balancing Standard. They care about making cards that are big and flashy and will make it out into Commander and will make it out into Modern and these other formats and disrupt them as well. And it doesn't matter how many people complain. It doesn't matter how many bannings they have to do. It doesn't matter how much loss of consumer confidence they have. Because at the end of the day, the only language that these guys speak is that it's cash. That's it. It's all about the money. And the reality is, these tactics work, but they work in the short term. So what happens is you get a big fat cash boost and you go, whoa, Magic is banging right now. Look at all the money they're putting down. They're bringing in the cash wads by the truckloads. This company's great. We're going to the moon with this one. You got nothing to worry about. It's all just living in castles in the sky now, my friends. Like, it's that sort of mentality, right? And that's the sort of announcement the company will make when Hasbro goes out and touts its earnings and stuff, right? Because understand that Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast, and that is one of the big symptoms. Not one of the symptoms, sorry. That's the root cause, actually, of what's going on right now. Everything else is a symptom of Hasbro owning Wizards of the Coast. And understanding this will help you have a better picture of how this works. So Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast. Now, Hasbro has had a lot of trouble in recent times because a bunch of their companies are struggling and going belly up. I don't know if you guys heard about Toys R Us getting like basically ganked. They're done for, collapsing or whatever. I don't know how they are where you are, but where I am, they're just donezo, right? And this is happening across the board. So Hasbro taking a hit in toy sales in certain categories or whatever, but you know what's still doing well for them? Magic the Gathering. But while everything's collapsing around, when you have a bunch of different income streams and some of them start to dry up, you start to look at the ones that haven't dried up and you go, how do I widen the stream? How do I get more of this flowing inwards, right? So Hasbro looks at Magic the Gathering and goes, we need this to make more money and we want to go digital for real. They don't even consider MTGO a thing. They're like, yeah, whatever, that's a failure. Get us like a proper digital version of Magic. So they bring in new leadership, right? A new CEO. And from that point on, basically, they fundamentally change how things are going. From my perspective, I've been playing Magic since 1994. So from my angle, things start to radically change. I actually had like my big flare out with Magic a couple of years ago when all the master sets and the way they were handling LGSs, getting rid of the MSRP and everything. I watched what was happening on the ground at LGSs and things like that, and it broke my heart. I literally had to step away from the game for a while. Like I couldn't deal with it. And that sort of management and mentality is still here. We see it in the fact that we've had poor card quality for years now. For years now. And the thing is, there's no incentive for Wizards to fix it. You know why? Because they make the money either way. Why bother? Why? You know what? It's costs them more money to make proper quality cards like they've done through the majority of the history of Magic. So they experimented. This is my guess. Now, I don't know 100%, but my guess is they experimented with, hey, you know what? We can, let's experiment with different printers that cost less money or whatever. Oof, wow, that's pretty loud. So they experimented with different printers and they found out that, hey, you know what? We can get cheaper card costs and let's put these cards out there or whatever. And the cards came back and they were poor quality. And it's like, okay, you know what? Ship those out and I guess we'll just see what happens. And then people started complaining, going, these cards are poor quality, but they kept bringing in the money. People kept paying. People kept paying. And so they just go, well, at this point, again, remember what I said. Look at it from the perspective of the most greedy people that you can, right? So from this perspective, you look at it and you go, okay, wait, these idiots will pay the same price or more, in some cases double, because these were master sets that were getting printed with very poor quality as well, right? So these idiots will pay for poorly printed cards and they'll pay double or triple the price. We're not changing the card quality. Keep using cheap printers, man. We're making more money than ever. I'm going to look amazing to Hasbro. The top level of management at Wizards of the Coast only cares about money because that's the only language that Hasbro and them talk back and forth. It's like Hasbro's like, money? And Wizards of the Coast is like, money. And Hasbro goes, money. Like, that's it. That's the conversation back and forth. And the only other conversation is, no money? I take heads, as in, like, I'll take your job. And then, so the CEO is under the thumb of Hasbro, where Hasbro's basically like, if X amount of dollars don't flow up from Wizards each year, you lose your job. And so the CEO turns to the top level of management and goes, if you guys don't make sure a certain amount of cash is flowing up the pipeline, I take all your heads. You lose all your jobs. That's how this goes, right? And then the lower levels of that are all just do what you're told. Do what you're told. But the top levels are all just get the money. It doesn't matter what you do, get that money. And they know they're only going to be at the company for X number of years. And the point is to just have every quarter of the year, every quarterly report where your numbers are up, that's the little gold star on your resume, okay? And you're already thinking about the next place you're going to work. You work at Wizards of the Coast, you're not thinking about Wizards of the Coast, you're thinking about your future and the company you're going to work at next. So all you have to do for the next couple of years is make sure that the quarterly reports are goosed, fat numbers come in. It's like you can pull the copper wires out of the building if you want. As long as the quarterly reports are up, when we leave the building, if the wiring's not in there, not our problem. We're not here. So that's the level of management that you have going on right now, where as long as the money comes in, everything's golden. Do whatever you want as long as the money is coming in. That's the philosophy that it appears to me they're operating under over at Wizards of the Coast. So things have gotten absolutely out of control with this, right? And the thing is, they're pulling in the numbers. They're reporting the numbers to Hasbro. There is no reason from the perspective of Hasbro to step in and stop this. Why would you? Why would you step in and stop like record earnings, right? But the problem is these record earnings are basically being earned by burning long-term profit for short-term gain. It's almost like taking out loans, where you're just, I'm taking out loans now and I'll repay them later, but you're just letting massive amounts of interest build up on it. And it's a way bigger problem than if you had just resolved it, right? But Hasbro may not even be fully aware of what a tire fire inside Wizards has become. They may think to themselves, this is just going to keep going on and on and on and on and on, right? Because it's obviously in top management's best interest to make Hasbro think everything is golden and sustainable, right? Not like, hey, we're gutting the company and later on you're going to have a big problem. But the thing is, if you're charging more money to a shrinking clientele, that's more profit in the short term. But over the long term, you lose more and more people as your customer base atrophies, right? There are fewer and fewer people who are willing to buy these expensive products. Fewer and fewer people playing. Like, basically, they're making standard absolutely unplayable in the name of selling the stuff, getting short-term money. But the fewer people who play standard, that's the fewer people going out to LGSs on a regular basis. Fewer, and those are like the most devoted people. They're buying booster boxes, not anymore. They're not going out to the shop anymore. They're not calling up their buddies to play casual Commander on Thursday night anymore. And it just has like a knock-on effect where fewer and fewer people play the game. And then the game doesn't have that underlying draw to keep bringing people in. Like, the philosophy that the company operated under before is that Magic players have a life cycle of like 2 years or whatever, right? So they'll be your customers for like 2 years and then you bring in new ones. But to do that, you need a great and stable game where they can enjoy themselves. You need that entry point where it's like, hey, what's going on? All right, I'm going to have fun playing this game with everybody. If you take that away, you don't have the same like inflow of new people. So as you're shedding these people, you're not getting more, right? It's like as you lose your hair, you're not growing back an equal amount. So eventually you're bald. You got no more customers, or you got like a few little hairs and you're just being like, I still got hair. It's like, yeah, sure you do, Wizards. You know what I mean? It's that level. So what has to happen for any kind of improvement at all is things have to get worse. The sales numbers have to slump. The numbers have to decrease for Hasbro to go, wait a minute, this thing isn't cranking out, the stream is drying up. What's going on over there? What have you done? And then they're just going to be like, if they're even still here, those people in management could already have moved on to their next jobs. Totally possible, right? But if they're still there, they'll just be like, hey man, I hit my quarterlies, whatever. This is in your hands. I'm heading off. I'm leaving. I'm going to another job. Here's my letter. I'm done. Thanks very much for the position. I hit your numbers. I'll be happy to tell people that on my resume and stuff. And I'm going to go to an even better paying job, do this for a couple of years there and move on. Because at the end of the day, nothing matters but me getting my cash, son. So it's the same thing. You know what I mean? That's the world we're living in. And at that point, then Hasbro will have to turn around and install new management with like one of two goals. One, to just squeeze every last dollar out of the game in a desperation throw away it's a husk now move, or to revitalize the game, to bring stability back to it, to create an inflow and draw people back into the game. Now, ideally, that's what I'm looking for. I really do not want to play the game of them sucking the husk dry. I don't want that. I've been around with Magic since the beginning, and I'd like to stick in it till the end. So I'm just going to say this, on that note, I did talk about how I had a flare out before. Here's my feeling. If you think Magic sucks right now and you don't want nothing to do with it, you're thinking about selling your collection, I get that vibe. I've been there. My recommendation, put it on a shelf, toss it in a box for a month or two, and see how you feel then. If you've just been ignoring the stuff, not playing with it, whatever, and you're like, bro, I want to sell it, get some money for another hobby. A hobby? I guess, yeah, get yourself some hopscotch pucks. Do they sell those? I remember those. I'm dating myself like as an old man here. Hopscotch pucks. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is you may just be feeling like a gut reaction right now where there's a bunch of stuff going on that's making you feel poorly, but a week from now, a month from now, you may still want to play the game and you will regret having gotten rid of your stuff. I'm not saying that'll happen to you. I'm just saying it's a possibility. You don't lose nothing by tossing it to the side. But if you made up your mind, you want to ditch your stuff, that's you. You make your decisions. You're an adult. Either way, just thought I'd throw that out there. It's like, I want to talk about all this, but I also don't want, it's difficult to talk about this kind of stuff while you also don't want to be like, I'm not trying to leave you with doom, gloom, and despair, right? The whole point of this is there's light at the end of the tunnel. but the road is rocky, my friends. But whatever, man, we'll get a car, we'll drive on down the rocky road, they'll ping off the windshield, we'll talk some smack, we'll complain, but ultimately, we're going to play them cards, son. So, I mean, as long as you want to keep getting cards, keep getting cards. Don't feel like you got to take special action. Do whatever it is you want to do in life, because life is short. Stressing out about cardboard rectangles isn't worth the worry. I've been talking a lot here, so I'm just going to let you know it's time to end this. I do have a lore channel. I've got an awesome new lore video coming out tomorrow, so I encourage you to check that out, because the Magic lore is like just a place where we can chill and have fun, and it's old school as well, right? So we're talking like Urza, Karn, the good old days. So if you just want to hear a nice story, come on over to Fantasy Geographic. I would link it in the comment section, but for the last 2 or 3 days, YouTube won't let me link any sort of, it's like, YouTube, I'm just trying to link to you over here, and YouTube's like, no, I don't trust it, bro. It's like, come on, man. What are you doing? So I'll have the link to the channel in the description if you want to check it out. If you want to look it up yourself, it's Fantasy Geographic. Thanks for coming by, everybody. If you like what I'm doing here, like, comment, subscribe. That's all good for the channel. Love that. If you love what I'm doing, jump on my Patreon. Thanks for coming by, everybody. I will see you all, if not tomorrow, then the day after that.